And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Dan Perkins joining us now. Economic analyst, political commentary, best-selling author, man of the world. Good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Not bad. Dan, before we get rolling on politics and the cultural battles that are going on, your thoughts on, there's so many questions I have for you. I'll go with the breaking news out of Afghanistan this morning. We have 3 folks dead, and it seems like we've forgotten that war, sir.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We've forgotten it and realized that Americans are still there in harm's way. The mainstream media is not really interested in talking about it, and but it's still a dangerous situation, as are portions of Iraq still a dangerous situation. And what isn't talked about hardly at all is the dangerous situation that's taking place in Iran, where the people are protesting the government and are being killed.
It's kind of like the return of the crazy Mahmoud days.
Yeah, it could very well be. Yes, that's a great point. Thank you.
Well, Dan, we go to, and you write about terrorism in a fiction form, but the terrorists, they haven't given up, yet we're not getting a lot of coverage, and we still have these battlegrounds in Iraq, in Afghanistan, where brave, whether they're troops, special operators, contractors, doing the people's goodwill. Yeah,
and if you come up the Mediterranean and go to France and look at the protests over the weekend, what's been reported in the mainstream media was that this was a reaction to the increase in petrol prices because of the taxes imposed by the government to begin to pay for some of the social programs that are unrealistic. And then we have the French government realizing that the socialist agenda that they had, that they thought that they got the mandate from the people to come in, when they figured out how much it's going to cost, they didn't know a way to start paying for it. So they started saying, okay, let's raise gas prices because everybody needs gasoline, so everybody will pay the tax. And we're going to be facing that same decision in the United States when we look at the significant ultra left who got elected to Congress, who want to have free health care and free Medicare and free college and free this and free that. They don't seem to have an answer to how do you pay for it. And now they're talking about they want to take back the tax cuts that the Trump administration got that helped spur the economy. And so it is a problem. But the other problem in Paris is, in addition to the protest of the left-leaning government increasing the fuel taxes, you have the other underlying reaction, and that is that the French people are becoming more and more angry about the invasion of the Muslims who are setting up the enclaves, and who are now about 10% of the population of France, who are trying to take over control of the country.
Dan Perkins joining us, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. And, of course, this gets underreported, and we see enclaves in this part of the country where you have, in a country that prides itself on separation of church and state, where you have Muslim enclaves in Michigan taking over the entire towns.
Yes, you do. And you have Minneapolis, Columbus, Ohio, and Seattle are huge centers of individuals who come from Somalia. I don't understand how they picked those 3 particular cities, but they seem to be the 3 largest populations in the United States. And so more and more are coming in. And again, Kevin, when I write about Muslims and I write about their documents, the Quran and the Sharia law, I continually talk to people saying what we don't understand in America is that we are a country that was built on the idea that we would take people from all over the world and they would assimilate into the American culture and make the American culture strong and more diverse. And the Muslims, by their own religion, are not prohibited or not permitted to do that because it is against their laws for them to assimilate with Christians and Jews. They are infidels. They're non-believers. So the idea that we can expect that this new generation is coming in and it's going to assimilate into the American culture, they're not going to abandon their religious beliefs where they are prohibited from assimilating with Christians and Jews.
And yet, when you take a look at that, I mean, we do have people that are Muslim that live in America, that assimilate, that want to be part of America, or do we, Dan?
Well, that's a really good question, Kevin. The question is, if you understand, there's another portion of Sharia law that is governing here, and to what extent it is in play in the United States, Kevin, I wish I could give you an answer. I don't know, but it's important to understand. And it's a provision called taqiyya. And taqiyya says that when a believer is interacting with or negotiating with or talking with an infidel, anybody who is not a Muslim, they have no requirement to tell the truth. So when we have people who claim to be believers in the Muslim faith talking about assimilating into American culture, I have a problem with that because their religious beliefs are counter to that. So whether they are using taqiyya to say one thing when they mean something else is a very distinct possibility, Kevin.
Our great friend Dan Perkins joining us. Dan, by the way, if people want to get a hold of you and your many books, what can they do?
Well, the books are available at Amazon.com and through their local bookstore, and the website is danperkins.guru, Guru, to hear interviews like this and read about reviews about the books and my prolific commentaries that I seem to write for everybody.
Let me switch gears on you financially.
Sure.
When you're not writing and doing everything else, you cover the markets. What do you make of GM's big move yesterday?
Well, I would put GM's move yesterday in the same category of Sears and General Electric. These are companies that were traditionally, when we were growing up and our parents were in the workforce, these were places where you had a career. You went to work and you worked there all of your life. You had a union contract that protected you, and they were the staple of America. They were dependable. But Sears is about to go out. General Electric has dramatically reduced itself in size and scope, and now we have General Motors. I think we're dealing with the reality of how things are changing in our country, and many of the old lions who thought they could survive are finding that they cannot survive the way they used to, and they have to radically change or close their companies.
It's scary when you think this is the second go-around for GM.
Yeah, it's a sad day in essence in America that this is happening, but it's a reality that we have to deal with, Kevin. And if we look at what General Motors was trying to do, I don't think that there's going to be another bailout of General Motors, and I don't think there'll be a bailout of General Electric, and I don't think there's going to be any bailout of Sears, even though these are iconic names that have been around for decades. Their time is past, and surviving on government subsidies is not going to prove to be profitable in the long term, because eventually those subsidies are going to have to disappear. It's like we're looking at subsidies that are supporting the solar panel and wind industry, and as a result, they are postponing the realities of whether or not these are viable businesses that can stand alone. As long as the government provides incentives for the companies and for the consumers to buy, the government is interfering with the process. And you know, General Motors as a company got a bunch of car lines, put them out of closed those, as did Chrysler, and and as a result, they're diminishing the turning into a niche company. Whether they can survive longer term their contention is they needed to do these things in order to survive. But the question, Kevin, related to General Motors is, how is General Motors going to continue to fund the pensions of those employees and the ones that are in the pension funds? My guess is they're not going to be able to, and so they're going to have to turn them over to the government and the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, which is ill-equipped financially to handle the magnitude of a GM transfer.
Well, Dan Perkins joining us on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. That's the legacy costs. But as a business model, when you take a look at General Motors versus, let's say, the Japanese or the Germans who are investing, and I understand you've got a lot younger workers in the South. You don't have the big plush union benefits that you do in the Midwest, but they seem to be making it work, and yet America that made the automobile, we're getting beat at our own game.
Yes. And that's another good point. You know, the idea that most of the automobile manufacturers of the world have made the decision to talk a lot about it. The Japanese and the Germans decided that they wanted to bring, and the Koreans bring their automobile manufacturing to their biggest market. The biggest market for all of these foreign automobile manufacturers is the United States. And so by bringing those manufacturing plants into the South, where you have right-to-work states under labor law, and offering people an opportunity to get a job, a decent-paying job, but not union, and get benefits, they were protecting their market share. But did General Motors protect its market share when it looked about exporting its business overseas? No. They've been closing plants overseas for a long time. So by their own actions, they diminished the eventual size of General Motors to a domestic manufacturer and trying to compete in the domestic market with the foreign manufacturers who have built new and modern plants in the southern part of the United States, employing hundreds of thousands of people. You know, you could say that the automobile industry may be dying in Detroit, but the automobile industry in the United States is flourishing because of the foreign investment in the United States of building cars.
Dan Perkins joining us. Kevin Miller, final question. Your thoughts on the president and reacting to the midterms?
Well, first of all, we picked up seats in the Senate. I know there's still some House races up for dispute, but if you look at the number of Republicans who retired, about 44 did not stand for re-election. And on a historical basis, Kevin, we know that incumbents win re-election about 98% of the time. So if those 44 Republicans had not retired, there's a real good possibility that 98% of them probably would have been re-elected, which meant that the Democrats would not have gotten the House. I think that is a very important measure of what's going on, is the fact that they have marginal control of the House. They lost the Senate. And their arrogance about all the things they're going to do is, to me, absurd, because they haven't figured out that the Democrats don't run the Senate. And I can tell you that when the Republicans controlled the House and the Democrats controlled the Senate under Harry Reid, over 300 bills that the Republican House passed never got to committee because they sat on Harry Reid's desk and never got happened. I suspect that turnabout is going to be about fair play, and that bills passed in the House are going to sit on Mitch McConnell's desk and never see the light of day.
Dan, one more time for people that would love to get your books, from the children's books to the adult books.
Sure. Those are all available at Amazon.com. And more information about me and what I do in my Foundation for Songs and Stories, which would be a great Christmas gift, would be Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us.
Dan, always appreciate having you on. You take care, sir.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be with you. That's great question. Thank you.
Take care, Dan.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Our great friend Dan Perkins, great Christmas gifts there. Hey, coming up next, do you remember the Chevy Volt? Remember President Obama President Obama was going to buy a Chevy Volt. Well, now it's done. Is that another one where we could say, thank you, Obama? Thanks, Obama. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning. KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. The controversy continuing on the border. We've been talking a little bit about that. Just crazy when you think about people coming into America, wanting to live here, and people say, well, they should have the right to do it. It's the right thing to do. Well, is it? Do people have a right to come into your house and take your things? And if you defend yourself, are you a bad person? Well, most likely in the state of California, you are. But in America, not so much, right? And the media, as I said, the biggest foe to our way of life is not the Democrats. It's the media. It's the media and their agenda. I mean, quite frankly, when you think about people rushing the border and they're attacking the Border Patrol agents and people giving the side to the attackers, it's just crazy. People saying it's a border crisis. Well, it's a crisis because Donald Trump realizes that, was elected on that, and decided we're going to stop it. And many people have an issue with that. Well, they shouldn't. They shouldn't. They should understand that this is the right thing to do. Maybe you disagree. If so, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. If you disagree with that, for years we've covered this again and again and again with the idea of, you have to stop this. And you have people from the caravan talking to the press.
The food and the water. The food, one weeks ago, a lot of food you can eat in 3 times a day. Now you can eating only 1 time. See, so many people are sleeping outside in the street.
It's just not healthy. And whoever came up with this caravan idea, they didn't think that Donald Trump would say no.
It's not easy because, eat good. You eat only 1 time a day. You're drinking water a little bit.
Right. Think about that. Here's our own Griff Jenkins on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio's Kevin Miller in the Morning Show with the latest.
Kirstjen Nielsen, the DHS secretary, giving us some numbers. She says that there's some 8,500 caravan migrants gathered, mostly here and then also in Mexicali, Mexico, about 2 hours from here. About 90% of them, they believe, are not eligible for asylum, which is a big point because, of course, that's why they say they are coming here. And the note that they believe there is as many as 600 with a criminal history in there. Now, another important part of this whole story, of course, is what we saw Sunday. DHS Secretary officials saying that 4 agents, at least 4 Border Patrol agents, were injured in all of this.
And there we have it. 4 Border Patrol agents injured. That's one story. At 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Another one has to do with the Pledge of Allegiance. And we're going to tell you about this next. But first, traffic and weather together. Let's get you to work safely and on time.
Rick Everett.
And I'm Kevin Miller here when we talk about the caravan. By the way, congratulations to the Wilder School District. It's awesome that the first daughter is coming. And by the way, thank you for forwarding this to me, Ray Maya, that Obama's daughters did come to Idaho. Yeah, they went skiing at Sun Valley. Now, when we talk about the values of the first daughters, I'm sure skiing at Sun Valley really helps raise awareness towards education. I'm sure skiing at Sun Valley really helps local school districts like in Wilder. But on one hand, you have Ivanka Trump coming into Wilder with Jeff Dillon, great superintendent there, good friend of the program. And then you have the Obamas coming in to ski. That says it all right there for me. And by the way, it shows you that you're making a difference. Pretty soon maybe Don Jr. will come in, maybe Eric will come in. Maybe we can get the president in. We're still working on that. But getting the first daughter here is another movement towards your campaign, our campaign of bringing the president to the state of Idaho. And when that happens, it'll be because of you. Bob in Caldwell with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Bob.
Kevin, good morning to you. I was wondering if you thought the following might be a great idea relative to the supporters of the illegals wanting to fashion the border walls, fences, and help themselves to all that's here. How about if we get the supporters, the liberal supporters of this whole fiasco to adopt them while they're waiting for asylum. In other words, we publish their resident addresses, zip codes, phone numbers, emails, whatever, so that these people can find them and house up with them for the next 6, 8 months, 12 years, whatever, and let these people support them. They must sincerely want to do something like that. Let's make it easy for them.
And let's start with the progressives here in Boise. We're a welcoming city, according to the mayor. Let's welcome him to any progressive that wants to house the folks.
Yeah, just make it personal and confidential so they can hang with them and let them provide their health care, their medical care, have them bring their pets if they haven't forgot that, and make them just as comfortable as can be. Why not? That's what I think.
Sure, and let's face it, everything that we have was stolen, except, that's what the liberals think, so maybe they could atone for their ancestors' sins by giving their things away.
Well, that ought to make the drive-by media, state-run media, happy and content, and maybe everybody will have a nicer holiday.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Phone number is 580-5436-580-KIDO. Quickly to Patriot Ray, who joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.
Good morning. I have a much better idea on what to do to help the illegals, since the liberals are so excited to have them come here illegally. What they need to do is send them down to the border and let them in. Let them go across and greet them and tell them how wonderful they are. And then, see how they get treated, and then see if their minds might change a bit. But I'm so tired of them sitting back in their cushy little offices saying, oh, we need to have them here. They only want their votes. So get them down on the front lines. Let them stand there with our Border Patrol and our service people who are there and have to deal with it, and make them stay for the length of time that the border people are there, that they're trying to get here. So it sounds to me like it'd be a better solution than telling them, oh, we got their addresses, go live with them. And, although I think that's a great idea, too. But it'll never happen. And it'll probably never happen to get any of them down to the front lines either, because then they might have to see something they may not like. But, Kevin, you're awesome. Thanks for all you do.
God bless, Patriot Ray. Thank you. Take care now.
God bless you, my friend. Bye.
Bye-bye. More coming up next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Kevin.
And don't forget, coming up this Saturday, it is the Boise Real Estate Pros from 7 to 8 with Kurt Bauer from Sierra Pacific Mortgage and Jennifer Hickey with Epic Realty. That's Saturdays 7 to 8. Joining us now, live from San Diego. What's it like on the border? Jessica Rosenthal of Fox News Radio. Good morning, Jessica.
Good morning.
So, what's it like on the border?
Well, Monday and today is markedly more quiet than Sunday, as you might imagine. I spent the day hanging around yesterday, the area that was closed, and, business as usual, vehicles going back and forth, people crossing the pedestrian bridge, going to work, going to school. Sunday was a very different story, and there was a lot of frustration on this side of the border because of that. Talked to one girl who said, I lost a day's worth of wages because I couldn't come to work. One man I spoke to who goes to school here but lives in Tijuana said that he got caught up with the migrants on Sunday when a group of them broke off from the caravan and rushed the border. And he said it was he called it a war zone. He said it was total chaos. He was just trying to get to his car in TJ and got caught up with everybody, and said it was pretty miserable. So no one really thrilled with what happened, specifically because their livelihoods, in part depend on being able to cross. So everybody was pretty thankful Monday that things seem to be getting back to normal, and they hope that some sort of normalcy and some sort of quiet is in the offing long term, that they can rely on here, and they don't necessarily feel so comfortable that that's really going to be their reality, because the word is more and more of the caravans of migrants from Central America are coming to Tijuana, and there's already about 5,000 people in TJ, either waiting to claim asylum or considering their options.
Doesn't appear safe. It appears to be a bottleneck.
I think that might be an accurate word because everybody's coming to one place, it seems. It's not this dispersal across the border, other ports like in Arizona or the Rio Grande. When some of the unaccompanied minors were coming in 2014 and even the caravan earlier this year ended up in Rio Grande, the Border Patrol beefed up resources there in Texas. So now they're realizing, maybe they want to beef up resources here in Tijuana in California. So it's sort of like playing a little bit of whack-a-mole, deploying your resources accordingly, depending on where the folks decide to come. In this case, it was Tijuana, and they're expecting, I've heard numbers as high as 10,000, maybe more people at some point, and they're probably more than halfway to that number already.
Wow. Jessica, any other things we should be looking out for this week?
The Border Patrol here just says it's a little bit of a react. They kind of have to react. So every day is a new scenario. They never know, hey, is today going to be the day where hundreds of people decide to break off from the caravan in Tijuana and try again? And what that version of trying looks like again. So it's very tenuous here, and it's a very fluid situation. We know that Department of Defense has deployed troops, more than 5,000 troops across the border, and they've shifted about 300 to 400 of them away from Arizona and Texas into California. So we'll have to watch the resources and watch what the migrants do.
Jessica, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Gotta thank you, sir. Joining us now, the publisher of the Gem State Patriot, gemstatepatriot.com, Tea Party Bob.
Mr. Miller, good morning to you. Interesting conversation this morning about the General Motors plant.
I would say.
No, you asked me about these plants yesterday, and I said the workers would eventually be absorbed into the other sectors of the economy, if not other auto manufacturers, but not at the same wages. General Motors has been paying its employees exorbitant salaries and benefits won by the unions for many years ago and have kept them in place for way too many years. And as Dan Perkins said, GM will not be able to finance its pensions in the future and will wind up turning them over to the government for a bailout, just as they did in 2009 when the U.S. government bailed them out. I'm not sure they're doing the right thing by moving manufacturing and making smaller cars in foreign countries. But if the past is any indication of the future, they will have many more problems to deal with. The 15,000 jobs are just a drop in the bucket when we're producing over 200,000 new jobs a month. And while we hate to see manufacturing jobs move out of the country, they have little choice if they want to stay in business. Many years of poor management have taken their toll on this company, and at some point they're going to go the way of the dodo bird, just as Sears and JCPenney are. If you don't innovate and keep your manufacturing costs low in the auto industry, you're doomed to die a slow death, especially if you're dealing with the unions. Look at American Motors, for example. It's no different in the technology industry. If you don't innovate and keep costs low there, you're not going to survive. And we can all remember the problems of Micron and then the problems they had competing with the other chip makers, making chips cheaper and cheaper. Competition was unbelievable. It almost put them out of business after the dot-com bubble. And you remember the Micron cutting the cuts that they made in their employees so severely that we almost saw half their people furloughed. So,
and this is something that we talk about with Dave Petzo. There has to be a covenant between people in the business community and the community that they live in. And no one will cover this about Micron, but we see the movement away from the Treasure Valley. The Treasure Valley that, because of people that were born here, raised here, created Micron, that without them, Micron would not exist. And we see this gradual turn to more of a global property. And, we can celebrate Micron this and that. It's a large employer. But I believe they have a duty to take care of the folks here. And not by a handout, but to keep the jobs here. And I don't believe that's happening.
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to a greed factor, too, with the corporations and trying to keep up with doing better each and every quarter, and we see that in the numbers every quarter. I do believe that they have lost that complete fascination with being in a place and taking care of their people. That's gone and that's forgotten, and it has been for some time. And I don't see it coming back. We live in a brave new world nowadays where everybody's expendable.
That's where I would like to see the truth-telling politicians, and we'll start with the mayor of Boise, who has never met a ribbon cutting that he doesn't like, to come out and to be an advocate and to be proactive.
With a progressive, you're not going to see that happen, Kevin. I don't know why you're even thinking he might do that.
I have a dream.
That's not going to happen here.
I have a dream.
Well, it may turn into a nightmare if you're dealing with Mayor Beater. You never know.
Well, he has a lot of friends. His family's an institution here. I get that. But, sooner or later, you have to make a stand. And I think the Micron situation, and you brought up when they almost lost half their workforce, is something that could, have devastating impact, not only on the state, but the entire region. And what are we doing to ensure that Micron stays? I know Virginia just got $6 billion from Micron. I know Taiwan got a new facility from Micron. I don't know what they're doing here.
Well, and that's the key to the whole thing. We're trying, and I understand that there are 3 new tech companies that are going to be moving into Idaho.
Right.
And I think it's recruiting the new companies to come in here because there is a potential that Micron will leave. And I think that people are understanding that. We see them consolidating in different areas, but it certainly isn't here in Idaho.
Tea Party Bob, JumpStatePatriot.com. Thank you, sir.
Have a great day, my friend.
You too. Good to hear from Tea Party Bob. Phone number's here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Continue to take your calls about the issues that matter to you. I just go back to this issue again and again and again, that there has to be some type of covenant between a workforce and the place they live in, like the old GM towns, right? Of course, look what happened to GM. Look what is happening to GM. It is troubling when you think about it. Much more coming up next. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's go to Terry from State College, Pennsylvania. Good morning, Terry.
Good morning, Kevin. Wow, 1,500 jobs, 15,000 jobs. I don't know what the difference all of this is going to make. About a month ago, they did a survey, 3,000 companies that had left the country, and it went broad-based from manufacturing to servicing. And at that point, 70% of them said we have no plans at this time to return to America. 70%. Kevin, that's a large number. And I remember when Remember President Trump was on the campaign trail and Carrier said, we're going to move to Mexico. And Trump said, we'll put tariffs on you. Okay, we won't go to Mexico. They came back a month later, very quietly announced, we're going to go to China. I don't know, Kevin. I think America needs to compete globally on a hourly wage. That's going to be the issue. I mean, they can go anywhere else they want, and they get labor much, much cheaper than us. They're breaking the backs of the unions that would protect the workers. I don't see this problem getting better before, because I don't know. I just don't see it getting better. And, global growth slowing down again. You're going down the line. So where's all this going to end? I wish we could give Mr. Trump more authority. I mean, more authority to take GM. 10 years ago, we watched GM do their big announcement. We were in Altoona, Pennsylvania, and they were showing all their new robotic modern plants in China, saying how they were going to have tremendous growth now that they were in China, and blah, 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 blah. And we sat there and watched it and said, well, there goes the car industry, and here it is unfolding in front of us. Ford, not going to manufacture cars no more for the most part, going to be just trucks. I don't see an end to all this. I don't care what anyone says. And look at the jobs that we're getting back. So much of it, in fact, is servicing. But where's
that's been going on. That's been going on for years, Terry. And you're right.
Yeah. Where's the real money at? I mean, when they get us down to servicing wages, That certainly is nothing like manufacturing wages. You and I both know that. We come from east of the Great River where all the big factories were. And then I guess at that point, we're able to compete. If people want to come back, we're able to compete because our wages are down. So then it'll be more, in line with what is happening in the other countries where we're taking all of it. All I can say is God bless America, and I mean that. We need his blessing. I mean, Mr. Trump only has so much authority, and there's, and I see the people going to sleep again. Where's everybody at? Why aren't they saying, hey, this has got to stop? Why aren't they back on the front line again? When you go around, you talk to other people, Kevin, the only place I hear any deep concern and any movement of any kind is on KIDO radio with Kevin Miller. Where is the rest of the country? Going back to sleep again. Ooh, difficult times. Kevin, your voice out there is the one voice that's crying in the wilderness. There's no doubt. And you just got to keep it up. And, we've got your back, and we love you and respect you to no end.
Well, we love you, Terry. You take care.
You have a good day, Kevin. Thanks.
Thank you. Terry from State College, Pennsylvania. Earlier on the Today Show, you had Padma Lashmika from Top Chef say this about the president.
Years have been tumultuous for a lot of us. And honestly, I wouldn't have even said I'm a very political person, but I seem to have found myself speaking out on a variety of issues. Girl. I want to be known as an advocate for the ACLU. I'm an ambassador for them for immigration rights. Obviously, even this morning coming here, I was reading about all the tear gassing of children on the border, and it's devastating. I am an immigrant, and I really identify with those people. When someone leaves their home and everything they know and belong to go to another country, it's because they have little other choice, and we forget that. We have plenty in this country, plenty to share.
Sure, we have plenty in this country, although Padma from Top Chef, I'm sure you came to the country legally and honestly, and you didn't throw rocks at the Border Patrol, at the border security folks. You obeyed the laws. See, that's what the liberal progressives miss, is the issue of obeying the laws, of understanding that when you're coming into somebody's house, it's host country sensitivities. But she's willing to give up things. Maybe she'd like to give up her Manhattan apartment.
Plenty for everybody. And I think we need to remember that the reason we're great is because of this melting pot of immigrants and this great cornucopia of influences and cultures and traits and just, expertise that we call from all over the world. That's really, to me, what makes America great. Not just its military or its capitalism, although those things are also built by immigrants.
Right. Military, the capitalism. In fact, the natives really don't do anything in America. It's the immigrants that do everything, according to Padma. And again, this is what we're up against again and again on the Today Show, talking about the tear gassing of children. And as we've talked about before, if you're obeying the law, you don't put your kids, if you love your kids, and we will call them out today, right now. If you love your children, you do not put them in harm's way, right? Now, I was just talking to a parent the other day, and I said, boy, I sure admire parents to have that ability, regardless of how old your kid is, to deal with that endless energy that comes from a young person and the patience and the guidance it takes to be a good parent. And just the endless energy, right? And yet, if you're a good parent, a loving parent, you don't put them in the front of the line where you have the angry men, 18 to 34, throwing rocks at the Border Patrol. What parent in their right mind would do that? What parent that loves their kids would do that? Right? So again, it's for proving a political point. There has to come a point in life, and I was talking to somebody the other day about trade-offs. I was talking to my sister about this. Life is about trade-offs. Now, there are no trade-offs. If you want to be somewhere, then you are. But the trade-off here is, I'm going to exploit my kids, put them in danger to try to get into America. And you're telling me somebody from Central America can contrive that enough, or were they coached? And I'm sorry for the parents. I'm sorry for the kids. But they know better. don't they? Traffic and weather together. Kevin Miller in the morning, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio.